Hello and welcome to
Matter of Fiction.
I'm your host Rory Cook, and in this programme we impart strange truths and concoct weird lies. This week we are live from inside your head, and only you can hear this. On tonight's show we have on Team White the team captain Do Not Refreeze, Simon Vickers.
Lady on Wednesdays.
And his guest, small town girl Georgina Wells.
Hello.
And on Team Night, we have Team Captain, Just Wants to Be King, Victoria Rice.
It's true.
And her contestant, with limited time, Joshua Pink.
Goodbye.
Thanks for coming. Okay, we'll crack on with round one. It's called Stranger Than Fiction. Each team is given a real but ridiculous fact. They then make up the other two facts within 30 seconds, and the other team must guess which is the actual fact. So I will give out the facts now. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, and you now have 30 seconds to think up two more whilst I talk. Go! Right, well, thank you to the people who've written in to the competition. That is what is the capital of Australia? Is it A, Sydney, B, Canberra, C, Perth? And you've emailed to studio@stormfm.com. Thanks for those entries. And we'll be drawing out very soon. This is the 6th episode, or 5th maybe. And we'll get back to you pretty soon in the final, which is soon. Okay. Start off with Team White. That's Simon and Georgina. Do you want to reveal your facts to Team Night?
We certainly do. Our facts are about teenagers. Our first fact is, a survey in 1944 showed that 18% of teenagers had scurvy.
Okay. Fact number 2. In the past, Swiss teenagers could be locked up for not having strong moral character.
And lastly, the average teenager produces enough hormones per year to fill the Royal Albert Hall.
What?
That's true.
Just saying about to see.
Okay, Team Night, do you want to query those, Josh?
Okay, yes. Well, let's start with the third one. The Royal Albert Hall. Given the size of hormones and the size of the Albert Hall, this would imply probably more fluid than actually goes through the human body would have to be produced in hormones per day in order for this to happen. Is that correct? Are there more hormones in you than water, for example?
Well, no, it's the entirety of you gets replaced every 7 years, you know, it's just, there's a lot of stuff going through you, okay? It adds up.
Josh?
But even if that were the case, you can't measure these hormones that come into being for a quarter of a second, can you? How would you ever do that? You can only do it by over a longer term period. It's just ludicrous. Utterly ludicrous.
Okay, before you go into mad rage, maybe we'd like to discuss the other facts.
No, I want to carry on with my mad rage about this fact. Alright, fine.
Hold him back!
The Swiss teenagers fact. The obvious question would be, why would they ever get rid of this law?
Simon?
I have to admit, there is a certain moral eugenics-y bent to it. You know, you must have strong moral character, so your children will also be strong.
I quite like the thought of that one being true.
You heard it here first. Victoria Rice supports eugenics.
That is
That's
rich.
not what I said!
That is rich, Victoria. Rich.
Right, okay. What sorts of things could you be locked up for? What kind of failings could you have?
Oh, I don't know. Drinking, promiscuousness, listening to music really loudly in public places.
Precociousness. Pretentiousness.
Alright, moving on to scurvy then.
I never thought you'd say that.
Did you say a particular country for scurvy?
Oh, yeah, sorry, in England.
Okay.
England, okay.
Yeah, sorry, 80% of English teenagers.
80 or 18?
18.
Question is, what do you have to get before it becomes scurvy? Because you could have a vitamin C deficiency without it being scurvy. Surely scurvy is quite an advanced form for it to be, isn't it?
Well, yes, exactly. That was why there was, it's 18%. It's quite a lot of people to have scurvy, but not quite enough.
A lot of sailors, obviously.
So 18% of British 18-year-olds were sailors.
I don't think that's ludicrous.
You don't think that's ludicrous?
Yes, Simon.
What? What are you looking at me for?
What are you talking about, Georgina?
Well, we're an island, great seafaring nation, etc., etc.
Big rationing issue during that time.
Yeah.
Yes, I accept we're an island. I accept that means, therefore, there is a lot of coast. That doesn't mean we all live on the sea. It's a very different thing.
Remember that there's that whole thing, it's that sort of the stereotypical, we never had bananas in my time. There was a fruit problem.
thing is, in a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables, you can get vitamin C. I mean, there's quite a lot of vitamin C in potatoes, as far as I'm aware. So just because there was maybe rationing doesn't necessarily mean that everyone would have got scurvy.
And as far as I'm aware, actually, average British health went up during the war rather than down because people ate a healthier diet because of the fact there wasn't enough things available. Right, well, I'm happy just to dismiss the Albert Hall one because, frankly, if that's right, I don't want to be right. So, at least with the other two, what do you think, Victoria?
I'm not sure how accurate the scurvy one would be.
Okay.
But then again, it's a bit of a random one to make up.
Well, I would assert, yeah, if they were going to make it up, they wouldn't make up something that's as sort of arbitrary as 18%. So, I would say, I would go with the scurvy one if it was me.
Okay, Team Knight, do you want to have a guess? Team Captain does have the final say.
Well, I'm going with scurvy.
What are you going for, Victoria?
Lacking moral character.
Scurvy.
Okay.
Well,
Team White, do you want to reveal?
Fortunately for your head, Victoria, you're right.
Never doubted it for a second.
Thank you.
Well, Team White, maybe you can pull this back. Team Knight, reveal your facts.
Under French law, being French is a state of mind and not a nationality.
The second one is the first official French Bible translated all the names and place names into French.
In the French legal system, you can plead mitigating circumstances if the person you murder is not French.
Wow, where do you begin on that? Simon?
It sounds terrible, but I can see the French saying, "Oh, it's only a state of mind." You know, I can. That was French.
Yeah.
I can see them saying that. Yeah. I mean, is it a popular axiom or?
No, it's actually an aspect of the legal system. The idea being it stems from before we had sort of passports and nationalities, that someone, if they felt themselves to be French, they would be French. And an inclusiveness concept of it. So it's defining a nation by the view of it rather than through sort of where you were born or anything like that. As far as I'm aware, I think it dates from colonial times. The idea being that when they had French colonies, the French people who'd moved out to these colonies would still believe themselves to be French, whereas, say, Africans who came here wouldn't consider themselves to be French, thus could be excluded. It's that sort of idea.
It's like, I think I'm French, therefore I am French.
Don't be silly.
The Bible one does sound plausible to me. Like, I mean, just because of the way translation works. You know, people have different views about things that should be translated and should be translated. You should know this. We go to a bilingual university.
Pierre, Simon, Pierre.
So you're quite happy for Jesus to have been born in, I don't know, Boulogne. Did say place names in the facts. I'm just going to point that out.
It doesn't mean change them completely. It means sort of Frenchifying them. So, like, we say London, but their word for London is Londres. They don't say Paris instead.
When you said Frenchify, I understand. I really thought you were just going to go turn London into London. But no. No, you mentioned the King James Bible. So I was going to bring that up. So, were they talking in French at the time still a lot?
Well, the French probably were.
But yeah, but in England.
I pretty much guarantee the French were speaking French at that time.
But it was the English translation, wasn't it?
Oddly enough, no!
But you said... Oh!
No, you said the King James Bible is in the one that was translated into a language accessible for the masses.
Oh, okay.
So this one would be translated into French for French people. Is that clear now?
Yes.
Like at the same time, there could be a Spanish one. You know,
having a really...
El Jesus, born in Bethlehem.
Jesus.
Can I just say, with that level of incompetence, if he gets this right, I'm going to be deeply depressed.
Shall I interrogate them on the third one? Yeah?
Yeah, probably best.
Yeah. All right. Mitigation because they're not French. So that's like saying, if you kill a Welshman with a bow and arrow and run back to Chester before the next day, then it doesn't count. This is the kind of laws. So they do exist, so it's not ridiculous, Josh.
It's a very simple aspect of dual citizenship. The idea is that someone, if they're an alien or a relative person in that country, doesn't have the same legal status as someone who is. It's simply a relic of that time. Very simple.
So it's very closely linked to the first fact that we looked at.
If they're both true, we're pretty screwed.
Well, logically...
I'm just saying, they may accidentally have told two true facts.
Team White, do you want to have a guess as to which one is the real one?
Not really.
Yes, really.
Well, after banging on about the Bible one, now I'm not so sure. But that really does seem likely to me.
Yeah, it does. I can see that happening.
Because the other two are related, it's also kind of the red herring of the three.
Yeah.
Okay, Team Knight, do you want to reveal if that's true or not?
You are Incorrect.
Okay.
What a
So you
surprise.
lost a point there, so you get another choice between mitigation in French law and being French is a state of mind.
It's a tricky one. I think probably the state of mind. Georgina?
I picked the last one and it was wrong, so we can go with that.
Okay, state of mind.
State of mind, Team Knight.
That is correct.
That is
Hooray!
correct. So you half pulled it back and you got 1 point. So the end of that, Team White have 1 point, Team Knight have 2.
Woo.
Round 2, Cats and Nazis. This game is for tonight's guests. That's Georgina and Josh. And each guest is given 4 unrelated topic, which they must link up via simple, logical steps to form a story which lasts a minute. And we'll start with Josh. And his words are umbrella, lipstick, flask, and Johnny Cash. So your minute starts now.
I looked out onto the horizon. I saw Mary Poppins appear, riding with her umbrella as is her accustomed schedule. She landed outside the front door of my house, and I thought, yes, that's the nanny for me. However, behind her there was another woman, tall, blonde, striking, wearing a beautiful shade of pink lipstick that aroused my attraction, somewhat more than the rather dowdy lady that unfortunately Julie Andrews was at that particular time in my memory. I thus decided, no, throw away the competent nanny, bring me the hot one instead. That can only go well for me. I took her inside and I gave her a thermos flask full of whiskey. I thought, if I'm going to get my wicked way with her, she's going to have to be very, very drunk, frankly. It's the only way things are going to go. I serenaded her on the balcony with 2 apple schnapses, some small sausages I had removed from a packet earlier in the day. That's important because the packet I then used to make a novelty paper hat, which I knew would entertain her. And finally, I went over to the record player I still had for some reason and put on the best Johnny Cash album I had.
Right. Quite a thing for Mary Poppins there.
You sicken me, Josh.
I've never heard you talk like that. I'm quite shocked.
Shameless manipulation of a poor, defenceless nanny.
Let me ask you this. If someone turned up applying for a nanny job wearing an unnecessary amount of lipstick, what would you think?
Don't you usually need a nanny when you're a small child? In which case, if you're a small child, what are you doing seducing women and giving them whiskey?
I was interviewing for a nanny for my child, and I thought, they go to bed at 8, and I'm employing her till 11. What am I going to do?
Okay, so Georgina, your words are owl, laxative, Bill Bailey, and sponge. Okay, so your minute starts now.
Harry Potter was very excited about the day he got to go to Hogwarts because it meant that he got to get an owl. And he went shopping for an owl and he looked at all different kinds of owls and he decided that a nice white snowy one was the best and he called it Hedwig and he took it to Hogwarts with him, where the first spell he learned was how to create a laxative in potions with Professor Snape, which he then instantly tried out on Neville Longbottom with his best friend Bill Bailey, who, it is little known, actually went to Hogwarts. And the two of them had many fun nights in the dormitory, talking and riding their broomsticks. That is not a euphemism. And my next word is sponge, so I don't know, taking baths together. Everybody likes the subtext in Harry Potter, so I'll just keep talking about that because I've got 10 more seconds to fill. And Ron, let's not forget Ron. He was the third member of the trio. Hermione didn't actually exist because she would have just ruined the homoerotic tendencies.
I want to read that book.
Josh.
So, you think that's okay? My story was sick because I wanted to have sex with an attractive woman. But manufacturing laxative and pederasty are perfectly acceptable for a children's story.
You don't get how much, do you, Josh?
The world's changed.
No, I'm too busy with the nanny.
At the end of that round, I think I'm going to give both points to Josh, actually. He's doing a little dance. I've never seen him dance before.
Josh. Dance, Josh.
Collaborative fiction is our third round, and this round is for everyone, played in their team pairs. Each has been given a word or topic that no one else knows. Together, each pair tell a story, incorporating their word, but skillfully concealing it, as they cannot mention their actual word or related words. Teammates will guess each other's word. So we'll start with Team White, that is Simon and Georgina. So I'll just give them their words. Only the audience at home can hear this. Simon's word is spoon, and he cannot say cutlery, any type of food, eat, knife, fork, or spork. Georgina's word is yo-yo, and she cannot say string or toy. There we go. And we'll go back and forth. And your story starts with Jeremy wandered lonely as a cloud.
Jeremy wandered lonely as a cloud and was starting to feel pretty hungry after having wandered so long.
So he decided to go to the shop to buy some food, but he got distracted by another shop that was next door that had round plastic objects.
The round plastic objects intrigued him, but there was something else, something silver. Beautiful silver implements.
And so he went in and tried to buy some of the silver implements, but when he came out, he still had some money in his pocket. He craved one of those little round objects that went up and down from his hand.
He managed to scrape together the money after a year's long hard graft, and eventually he managed to buy both a long silver implement, which was, and within this long silver implement, he cupped the thing that went up and down and up and down.
And then, using the thing that went up and down, he was able to walk the dog, rock the baby, and live quite happily with that and the shiny silvery things forevermore.
The end. Okay. I love this game. It's like a mental torture, but it's legal. That's the important thing. It's legal.
We can't complain.
Okay, so Simon, do you want to have a guess at Georgina's word?
So it was a ball that went up and down. It went up and down and up and down, and you could rock a baby with it or something. I mean, rock a cradle with a baby in it. Seesaw?
No, Georgina, do you want to tell him some more? Give him some clues, or repeat what you said?
I said it was a round plastic object that went up and down, and we'll ignore the more obscure, too clever clues. Think 90s, Simon. You're a 90s child. Come on. What was really big in the playground?
Space hopper?
No, it wasn't.
Bit smaller.
Team Knight, do you want to have a guess as to what it was?
A yo-yo.
Yes.
Oh, yo-yos were massive. Oh.
Walk the dog, rock the baby.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was quite proud of that as well.
Too stupid for you.
Okay, Georgina, do you want to have a guess at Simon's?
Cutlery.
A type thereof.
Oh, more specific.
Let's go through the clues.
It was long and silver implement. It's pretty. You've already got that one really, and it was cupping. It was cupping the thing, the yo-yo.
A spoon.
Yay! Okay, you get 1 point. Team Knight, you've been smug for a while. Let's see how well we can do. Give you the words. Only the audience at home can hear this. Josh's word is butterfly, and he cannot say caterpillar, wings, cocoon, insect, or types of butterfly. And Victoria's word is pogo stick, and she cannot say spring, jump, bounce, stick, or go. So we'll go back and forth, and your story starts. Daisy quit her day job.
Daisy quit her day job because she had a much better idea of what to do with her time. She went to a fridge and took out some lard from it. She thought, what can I do with this lard that will be interesting?
She thought, I could make this into a form of exercise. Possibly. If I just try a bit harder, mould it into a specific shape, long and thin.
Then perhaps it would make a very good projectile. Perhaps I could be able to project this across the room in some particular fashion that might perhaps be endearing to me, might make an interesting shape.
You know what? I think it would project me across the room very well indeed.
Excellent, she thought. This will enable me to fulfil two of my dreams. I have always thought there would be nothing more exciting than seeing margarine propelled through the sky of its own volition.
But the propellant wasn't... She didn't know which propellant to use. Some used balls, some used coiled silver things. But which was the best one to propel herself across the room?
The end. Okay. Josh?
Before we start, can I just say I was focusing so much on how clever I was being, I didn't listen to anything Victoria said. So it's maybe difficult.
It's okay, we can recap.
I might.
So, Victoria, do you want to guess Josh's word?
Margarine and or lard that is projected across the room of its own volition.
Obviously, you can't say what it is, so, things which are like margarine
Like
or
margarine
lard.
and lard. That sort of cooking fat type substance.
Olive oil?
No, that is your first guess.
Oh, that wasn't a guess. I was thinking out loud.
You've got one more, and I suggest you listen carefully.
I'm not going to spread olive. I'm not going to spread olive oil on my bread. There are things I might spread on my bread. If I was going to project it.
I thought I was so clever as well.
It was very clever. Cooking fat like margarine and lard in flight.
I can't believe it's not.
Butter.
It is.
That's the first part.
Yeah, butter.
What's the butter doing?
Butterfly.
Yes! Oh,
At least you managed to speak through your tears, Victoria.
So now I have to remember what she said 5 minutes ago when I wasn't listening. Okay.
Well, propelling yourself across the room was an excellent idea. With the butter and lard, margarine and lard, should I say, you could form a pole of some description which could be used to give you exercise.
Okay, so I'm somehow sort of projecting myself or flying through the air somehow, and there's a pole involved in it.
There's also a metal coil.
Oh, that doesn't help. I could get it till the metal coil came up. Is it one
There
word
are
or two?
different two words.
Okay.
It could be a hyphenated word.
Is one of them a nationality?
No.
Damn.
I'm not sure whether it counts as a guess or not. You ask questions.
That's a question. That's not a guess, is it? As long as she's correct, then that takes away my only idea I had.
Well, and I said there were different methods of propulsion. One could be a ball and one could be a coiled metal wire.
Spring and a ball.
Different, the same implement to propel yourself across the room in a leaping fashion. Could either use a stick with a ball on the end or a stick with a coil in it.
Pogo stick?
Yeah! I'm afraid you're already getting the one. I don't give halves. Curious Case of Mr. DeVries is our fourth round. This round is for our team captains. I've read some biographies recently that weren't that interesting, so I've taken the key moments from their lives, and I'd like our captains to rewrite the biography within a minute via simple, logical steps. And we'll start with Victoria for Team Knight, and I'd like her to tell me the biography of Mr. Hans Washer. He can only cook under a full moon. I want to know why. He invented beef jerky, and I want to know why. And he ensnares kangaroos, and I want to know how. Okay, and your minute starts now.
Mr. Hans Washer had a strange affliction. He was a wolf were. He turned into a human under the full moon, and therefore could only cook under the full moon. He liked eating raw meat the rest of the time, but he invented beef jerky so that his cooked meat would keep over the whole period of time that he was a wolf, because he still liked the taste, but he didn't have the hands. He didn't have the hands to cook the beef jerky the rest of the time, so he could only do it at full moon. Now, he liked kangaroo jerky even more than beef jerky, so he thought, why don't I make kangaroo jerky? So he ensnared kangaroos whilst he was a wolf and cooked them under the full moon, and therefore he could eat quite happily for the rest of the month.
Scarily logical.
Just a werewolf called Hans Washer.
Can I say there'll be the least terrifying horror story where he turns into a wolf and just eats jerky for a month and goes back again?
But he really likes beef jerky.
And kangaroo jerky produces less methane.
And this wolf particularly worries about methane emissions, does he?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Okay, then to bring it back, Simon, I would like you to write the biography of Mrs. Leotard.
Oh.
She's immune to deodorant. I want to know why. She broke into Fort Knox, but what was she going to steal? And failed entry requirements to McDonald's. And how could you possibly do that? I think you should start now.
Mrs. Leotard, born with a one-piece fused to her due to a unique accident during a party when her mother ate one for a bet. This gave her a unique skin condition, which meant that it released a chemical that caused deodorant to just slide straight off. This caused her terrible body odor problems during her life, and she could never get a man. Her parents were always on her trying to get married, and she just couldn't. She couldn't. So eventually, in desperation, she decided to break into Fort Knox because she'd been told by her Russian spy friend about. She met him in the Gulf about the revolutionary new deodorant that clung to anything designed to make dogs attack tanks. There's a smell that dogs like, and it makes sense in the long run. She failed in this and was taken to jail by the American authorities, and after she got out, she had a criminal record. She tried to get into McDonald's, and they refused to let her in.
Broke into Fort Knox to steal deodorant which scares dogs off tanks.
No, it makes them attack tanks.
Oh, it makes them attack tanks.
It's a smell they like, right? Or it's like a pheromone that sets the dogs off, and angers them, and they would throw like bombs of it onto enemy tanks.
This is just the plot to Snakes on a Plane, but on the ground with tanks and a dog.
Yeah,
so it's not like it in a
Dogs
sense.
on a tank.
Dogs on a battlefield.
Doesn't that deodorant mean that dogs would attack her?
She didn't think it through. She was desperate.
I'm going to give both points to Team Knight
I'm so sorry.
because that was simple and logical and not ridiculous and illogical.
Worse.
It's okay, Simon. It's okay.
Round 5 is called Elaboration No Breathing. And this round is for everyone, and I would like them to elaborate on a story for me, and then we'll take it in turns to add something to the story, but must also repeat what was said previously. And the start line is, things started to pick up for Stuart the sheep.
Things started to pick up for Stuart the sheep when he was walking across a field one day and came across a wolf. But not any wolf, a friendly wolf who would teach him how to...
Things were picking up for Stuart the sheep. He was walking across a field and met a friendly wolf who taught him how to dress up and drag as Little Red Riding Hood because he thought it would be fun.
Stuart the sheep was walking in the woods one day and came across a wolf. The wolf taught him how to dress up in drag because he thought this would be fun and he could be Little Red Riding Hood occasionally. But he didn't want to be Little Red Riding Hood. He wanted to be Grandma.
Things started to pick up for Stuart the sheep when he met a friendly wolf who taught him to be in drag as Little Red Riding Hood. But one of them, I can't quite remember which, didn't want to be Little Red Riding Hood, presumably one dressing up. Anyway, he wanted to be Grandma. This was because ever since he was little, he had harboured fantasies in which he, the Grandma, was wooed by an interesting Spanish gentleman.
Things started to pick up with Stuart the sheep when he was walking across a field one day and came across a wolf, a friendly wolf, who taught him how to dress up in drag as Little Red Riding Hood. But he didn't want to be Little Red Riding Hood, he would be Grandma, because of this incident in his childhood which was deeply unnerving. However, at this point, an unfortunately sarcastic tortoise came along and pointed out that if a sheep dresses up in drag, it actually looks like a ram rather than a human being.
Things were picking up for Stuart the sheep as he strolled across a field into a wood, met a wolf who told him how to dress in drag as Little Red Riding Hood. He said, no, I want to be the grandma, donned a hat and went, hola, señorita, and then met a sarcastic tortoise who I don't think had a name, but I will call him Josh. And they all decided to go for a picnic.
Things were picking up for Stuart the sheep. And he was walking in the woods one day when he came across a wolf who taught him how to dress up in drag and be Little Red Riding Hood. But he didn't want to be Little Red Riding Hood, he wanted to be Grandma because he held some random fantasy in which he was wooed by a Spanish gentleman. So, there was a sarcastic tortoise called Josh who came along, and the sarcastic tortoise decided to teach Stuart how to tap dance, which looked lovely when he was in drag as Grandma.
Things started to pick up for Stuart the sheep when he was walking in the field and then the woods one day and met a friendly wolf who decided to teach him to dress up in drag as Little Red Riding Hood because of some twisted power play or something, I don't know. But Stuart did not want to be dressed as Little Red Riding Hood, he wanted to be dressed as Grandma because of fantasy he'd held since he was a child where he was a grandma who was wooed by an interesting Spanish gentleman. And unfortunately, as he was explaining this, a sarcastic tortoise named Josh walked up and explained that he would look like a ram if he dressed up like a man or as a male sheep, and then, for no reason at all, decided, actually, I'm going to teach you to tap dance. While they were doing so, they heard a noise in the bushes. Suddenly, from nowhere, Fernando, the Prince of the Spanish Main.
Things started to pick up for Stuart when he was walking through the field one day, where he came across a friendly wolf who taught him how to dress up in drag. But he didn't want to dress in drag as Red Riding. He wanted to dress up as a feisty Spanish señorita grandmother in any accent other than Spanish, because that was truly appalling. However, he then met a very wise, brave, and handsome tortoise called Joshua, who wisely, cleverly, and astutely pointed out you would actually be dressed up as a ram rather than a human if you did this. Then the tortoise randomly taught him how to tap dance, and he headed up into the woods, where another Spanish gentleman in a different, equally wrong accent came dancing out of the woods and decided, no, I am not actually Spanish, I am actually French, because that is another accent I cannot do. And I will take you back to my cabin in the north of Germany, where we will have very special times together and the whole of our days.
The best day of Stuart the Sheep's life involved meeting a wolf that didn't want to eat him, dressing in drag not as Little Red Riding Hood but as Grandma, meeting a very handsome and sarcastic tortoise called Josh, learning to tap dance, then being propositioned by a French gentleman to go to his cabin in Germany. It's all very cosmopolitan. Where they all sat round a fire and told each other stories about when they were young.
Stuart the sheep led an interesting life. One morning, he walked into the woods and was held up by a wolf who wanted to dress him in drag. But Stuart, stuck by his ground and said, "No, I want to be Grandma, not a wolf, not even Little Red Riding Hood." But then they decided that he'd look more like a ram if he was in drag than a human, so it didn't really matter anyway. Then there was a Spanish gentleman in the woods, and there was a tortoise named Josh, who of course was very sarcastic and very handsome, but, that taught him to tap dance, and they danced off into the sunset.
Simon?
Right, well... okay, things were looking up for Stuart the Sheep even, wrong franchise, who... when he was walking in the field and then the woods, and then he met a wolf, presumably the big bad, who decided to teach him to dress up in drag as Little Red Riding Hood. But Stuart did not want to be the Little Red Riding Hood. He wanted to be a grandmother, because he'd harboured a fantasy since he was a child, where he was a grandmother who was wooed by an interesting Spanish gentleman. During this process, along came a sarcastic tortoise named Josh, who was always nitpicking, and who pointed out that he would look like a ram if he dressed like a male sheep, because male sheep do not look like humans, they look like male sheep. And after this, suddenly decided he wasn't going to be that much of a fiend after all, and that he would actually teach him to tap dance. And during this tap dancing session, a rustle in the bushes, Fernando, Prince of the Spanish Main, increasingly stereotyped, leapt out and said that he would sweep them away to his cabin in Germany. And they sat there telling campfire stories of his conquests that day. And they all lived happily ever after. I think my brain's broken.
I think you could actually write that book for children, Stuart the Sheep, and perhaps not the drag bit, but definitely meet in Spanish.
Embracing different nations and species. It's a healthy message.
I was a sheep, got a better life than me. I wish I met sarcastic tortoise.
Do you have a handsome tortoise companion?
I was
No,
about to
you
say,
don't.
do you want to be swept off your feet by a Spanish gentleman?
Only if he's Spanish-French and he takes me to his hut in Germany.
That's
is
the bit you want
unlikely.
most of all.
Yes, it is. In that round, I'm going to give both points to Team White.
Yes! We had points, Simon!
Beautiful, precious points!
Who'd have thought?
So, that means Team White have 4 points. That's Simon and Georgina. And Team Knight, Victoria and Josh, they have 7.
Woo! Yeah!
So, you are second in Group B. How does it feel?
It feels like a spectacularly monumentous non-event.
What he said.
Would you like to choose a song to play us out?
Oxford Collar by Vampire Weekend, please.
Choice. I'm sorry, I like that song. Good decision. Might even play that next week, no matter who wins. I'd just like to thank both our teams. Team White, Simon Vickers and Georgina Wells. And Team Night, Victoria Rice and Joshua Pink.
Woo! Yeah!
And you know, I've learnt something today. I've learnt that Victoria Rice supports eugenics.
No, I don't. I don't.
80% of British teenagers had scurvy.
Lies.
The Americans developed revolutionary deodorant technology to cause dogs to attack tanks. Boys playing with their broomsticks is not a euphemism. Wolfwares are partial to kangaroo jerky. And Josh is a sarcastic yet handsome tortoise.
Oh.
I've been Murray Cook. You've been listening to A Matter of Fiction. Good night.
This show was brought to you by Banger Comedy. For information on more shows, radio broadcasts, and how you can get involved, check us out on Facebook. Just search Banger Comedy. Or send us an email at comedy@undeb.banger.ac.uk.